Meghan Sheffield is a writer, visual artist, mother, and creator of community. Meghan specializes in telling stories about family, culture, and place. We talk about sharing studio space and creative tools with our kids, the role of the artist in a community, and the recurring theme that everything is connected. So, hi, Meghan. Thanks for being here with me today.
Hi, I'm very excited to be here. I think it just seems like an incredible project, so I'm honored, really, to be here.
It's really an excuse for me to get to talk to a bunch of women artists that I admire. So it works. You ask people to be on a podcast, they will chat with you for half an hour. Awesome. So obviously I know you, but how would you introduce yourself to somebody that you were just meeting?
Hmm. Um, it's interesting because I would definitely identify myself right away as a mother, and I don't know that I would immediately introduce myself as an artist. So I just think
Okay.
that's an interesting, um, yeah, it's an interesting question because of that. Um, I'm a mother, I'm a writer. Um, our family practices all kinds of alternative education that has mostly over the years looked like homeschooling. Um, and yeah, I have a kind of lifelong love of art, and I have been able to express that and explore that kind of more and more over the years. And I think that, like, yeah, my discomfort around calling myself an artist is more to do with what other people might then expect of that, but kind of
Right.
internally, it's actually a useful tool for me to say I'm an artist because it's a broad term and my expressions are quite multidisciplinary, and I feel like, okay, artist does encompass all of that.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I'm also curious if if you noticed that you said, "I don't know if I'd call myself an artist," and then you said, "I'm a writer," like, right away.
Yeah.
Do you think of writing as one of your artistic practices, or do you have that in, like, a different box somewhere?
No, I absolutely do consider it one of my artistic practices, and it's something, I would say that it's something that I lean on, so, like, almost on a professional level, like, I've been a journalist, almost my entire adult life, starting in university, and that's easy for me to claim, and I do write creatively as well, and, I write poetry and occasional nonfiction short stories, and yeah, I think yeah, it's funny that you identified that because yes, absolutely, I have no problem calling myself a writer because, I think because I have had lots of, external reinforcement of that.
Right. Isn't that so interesting? I think it's really an important actually point to think about because as an artist myself, like, I don't make very much money almost ever actually making art. I make my money teaching or occasionally I get paid, but like it's certainly not paying the bills in my household. And so it's an interesting question about like how do we claim and decide we get to call ourselves artists and how much does external validation money like play into that? It's something I'm sure most people, unless they're making a full-time living just making art, are like thinking about and kind of grappling with.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm also the type of person who would say everyone is an artist. Everyone has
Mhm.
that creative spirit inside and the need to express and explore the inner world and outer ways. So, yeah, we hold multitudes. And one of them
Yeah,
is like, yeah, the struggle to identify, especially in this like capitalist world, right? Where it's like,
absolutely.
oh, is that, as you say, is that how you're making money then?
Right.
Which
Yeah.
should not really come into the conversation until, you know, a
Yeah.
much later date.
Yeah. Or it's not the defining feature of what makes an artist, in my opinion, you know? Um, you're speaking about artistry and like thinking everyone's an artist. I'm with you 100%. And I actually was when I was thinking about talking to you, it occurred to me, like, the way you exist in community, in our community, we share a small community, to me feels like a very artistic practice because you are somebody who I think of as, like, you pay close attention, often to, like, people or places that are ignored or are being seen in a light that is maybe not the truth, because why would there be one truth? And then you share what you are experiencing or what you're seeing, like, in a really thoughtful way, and to me, that is, like, that is art. Um, so I'm just putting that out there, and I guess what I'm touching on or what I'm thinking about is, like, whether or not we're paid, whether or not we're professional, like, what do you think the artist is sort of a community role? Like, has a job to do in community?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, first of all, thank you for that reflection. Like, it's just really helpful to hear from others, right? Reflected back, like, what are we putting out? And yeah, you're right. In many ways, my presence in community does feel very deeply connected with um creative practice, and it sort of comes from that same heart. And yeah, I think I'm not alone in that, because I think that a lot of people, again, whether they identify as artists or not, find a richness and an amazing interconnectivity when they plug in deeper to um the into the connections that
Mm,
that are present every day, but we may or may not be tuned in. When we tune in, we can feel that is there's something more there. I
yeah.
think that's universal, and I do think it's like it's related to that spirit, that heart that each of us has. And I mean, I think of like Rebecca Solnit's writing about how communities come together in disaster.
Mm,
And often we have kind of like a collective fear about like what if the worst happens? And the historical record shows that like time after time when the worst happens, people really connect up. And she writes about how communities who have been through incredible hardship after hurricanes, after wars, after earthquakes, will later report that those were like the best days of their life. And it's
mhm,
like, I think that is in part because that the immediacy of the situation requires really being present um, with that
yeah.
spiritual connection to all beings is basically where
Yeah.
I'm going. Like,
Yeah,
and
just there.
it's so, yeah, like it sounds so deep, but it's also like really ordinary. And I think that when I think of like what is my artistic practice as a whole trying to do, it is to reveal that, to reveal those webs of connection. And a couple of years ago, Katie Flindle and I worked with Critical Mass, going into schools to make art inspired by the Frog and Toad book series,
Mhm,
which everyone loves. And like,
mhm.
and part of what everyone loves is like the Frog and Toad have this incredibly loving, tender friendship. And they're a frog and toad, and that's like, a deeply
Yeah.
natural world. And so like the art that we ended up making, we made like a 3D landscape with um a whole variety of students of all different ages, all contributing, from grade 3 to grade 12. And it was called Frog and Toad Live Right Here, because the idea that we wanted most to be experienced both in the making and the like viewing of this art was to be like, oh yeah, we can live in the way that Frog and Toad live.
Mm,
And so that's kind of like a playful way of answering that question, I think. Yeah, that community it is already there. Like, nobody has to go anywhere. Nobody has to be in a different place. Um, or, you don't have to, it's not something that can be sold. It's not something you go and buy. It's not,
Yeah.
it, like, it really is just about like an openness and, um, curiosity, wonder. And so, like, that
Yeah.
is so tied up with the artistic, endeavor as well, right? For all of
Yeah.
us.
Absolutely. You touched on a bunch of things there that lead me to wanting to ask about what you're currently working on. I know one thing you're currently working on, and I think it relates a lot to this idea of community connectedness to place, the natural world, a whole bunch of things you just talked about. So can you talk? You don't have to only talk about that project, but certainly,
Yeah, I would love
I'm curious
to.
to hear what you're working on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, right now I'm working on a project illustrating a song by a wonderful songwriter named Shannon Minton. And yeah, no, it's so great. Like, so a couple of years ago, I made a cranky show, which is it's basically an illustrated long scroll that is sort of played within, in our case, a wooden theater box, illuminated from behind, so that it's almost like a very, very analog screen, all on one long scroll of paper. And I made it to go with a song that my husband David Newland had written, and we performed it together along with our kids at a winter solstice event party ritual that we host every year. And Shannon, you were there. And after
Elbowing kids out of the way to sit and look at that.
yeah, and that was the biggest cranky I've ever made. I've made smaller scale ones, but that one was really like a fun project and really interesting to expand it. That was also the first time that I had made it to fit the music, to fit the lyrics, to fit the timing. In the past, I had sort of made crankies and later added like a music soundtrack kind of thing.
Okay.
And so yeah, then after seeing that, then you approached me and said, "Hey, would you ever want to do a cranky with with one of my songs?" And I was very enthusiastic about that. And so yeah, this winter, I would say my main creative outlet um this winter has been this cranky project, working on a kind of illustrated narrative to accompany your song "It All Depends," which is a song about so much of what we were just talking
Hmm.
about finding common ground and finding those connections that
Hmm.
maybe we might not see right away, or that go kind of below the radar, but finding those connections. And in the cranky format, it's kind of exploring the connections that are on an interpersonal or human level, and as well as like an interspecies and more than human level. And um yeah, and so I've been mostly what that looks like this winter has been like a lot of sketching. I have a big list of images that I want to perhaps bring in, or different species, for example. And so it's like,
Yeah.
okay, what if there's a fox? What is the fox doing? What shape will they be in? And so yeah, lots of sketching. And just this week I've had an exciting kind of arrival to the process that I don't know if it will be used in the end, but a friend and colleague of my husband David's created from this winter's winter solstice ritual ashes. Her name is Nevin Hanks. She's an amazing artist in Peterborough, and she created an ink from the ashes of that ritual fire that
Oh.
that our community, you were there, Shannon, and so many um of our like beloved friends and community members were present, participated in that ritual. And then Nevin, like at the end of the night, harvested the ashes, took them home, and has made this like ink or watercolor And so I've been playing with that, and it's just like a really interesting addition to the process. And um, really that's like my dream thing is like this is all
Yeah.
the things.
Yes.
Yet another collaborator collaborating with the ashes of a communal ritual. It's just like, thinking about like what was that wood that was in there, it's just
Yeah.
really um incredible thing. So, like I said,
Yeah.
I don't know if that how that will play out. I've been using it in my sketchbook just this week. I haven't used it on the
Sure.
like scroll of paper. So that's like right now I'm really in the fun of it, of like
Yeah.
trying out different things and sort of developing this like store of images that I'm drawing mostly with pen and pencil. Like I think they're called Micro Sigma. Um, uh,
Okay.
is that what it's called? Pigma. It's Micron Pigma Sakura
Okay.
pens. And so, yeah, then they come in a whole
Okay.
bunch of different sizes, and that's what I like to play with for Cranky because it's lit from behind. Then there's, like, kind
Okay.
of this high contrast thing that happens.
I love that you used the word communal just there because I actually, in the questions I prepared in case they worked out, I have my next question for you is about a communal sketchbook that you showed me. You sent me a picture when you were developing one of the Cranky sketches, and one of your kids was also developing their own masterpiece on the same page, which I loved. You and I both shared in the joy of that. And I think like it's so lovely to share creative space with your kids, and it's also very distracting, at least if I may say so, sometimes to be sharing like literal space and headspace with your kids as you're trying to create. That's my feeling anyway. Sometimes I love it. Sometimes I need them to give me space. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, like, so particular to each person. So right
Yeah,
now we're recording in my husband David's, like, loft office studio, and he really needs a separate place. I have always been, like, I growing up as a kid, I would, like, do my homework on the kitchen table, like, not in my bedroom. I've
right.
always been kind of an outie person, and, so I'm pretty happy to work right in the heart of the home and with other things going on, and I think that also helps me to sort of, like, fit things in, and I mean, we could have a whole other conversation about, like, ways that women are socialized to like have hobbies that can be easily incorporated into the home and all of that. But I do think that I like to be around others. I get creative energy from being in the mix and also from being able to hop in and out of creative work. And
Okay.
so yeah, like the sketchbook thing is so like, so funny because I buy a lot of sketchbooks, I make sure there's a lot of sketchbooks around, and, my 2 youngest kids who are 5 and 10, they do a lot of drawing in sketchbooks, and, but as I this winter, I bought a new sketchbook for this cranky project that I'm working on because I was like, I want a long lay flat one so that I
Right.
can have long rectangular sketches so I can start to imagine how that fits because that's sort of the medium, if you will, of the cranky is like
Sure.
long connecting images. And so that's like the orientation is landscape. So yeah, I got this book for that and like was sort of thinking of it that way. And then one day my 5-year-old River started drawing in it. And it was amazing though, because what he did, he joined in, I think I was actively drawing and he joined in to work on the same page or the same like 2-page spread
Yep.
and added like I was drawing a campsite on a riverbank and he began to add to that and he's like, you need a campfire. So he drew a really big campfire and then he flipped the page and he drew a tree with a squirrel on it. And, like it was collaborative. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, like part of me, I think that the sketchbook is representative, as you say, of something where it's like, I want space to be able to, be an individual person who's expressing themselves in this way, and that not everything is shared with my children, not every single thing.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, there is something like really beautiful and awesome from being open to that. And like
Yeah.
I was in my head going, well, what is the advantage if I say no, no, don't? This is like
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
serious art, like
Yeah.
where does that take either one of us?
Yeah.
And so like it's not like it's like a done deal for me, like in terms of the process
Yeah.
of what um like I think that's
Yeah.
like as a mother, there's like an ongoing
Yeah.
negotiation, and that's like pretty active for me. And I also have to say, like, I feel really grateful, like my family does. I feel like as I carve out space in the family home for doing this, they also like make that space for me. And I think that like by joining in and like sharing materials, that's one of the ways that
Mhm.
they do that even at a young age, however
Yeah.
subconsciously.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, like it's not, there's no never any like simple answers, like it's not clear about how to do this stuff. I do know, and I think you and I have talked about this a bit, like that, like part of what we do in the world as mothers who are artists or artists who are mothers is with that second generation and beyond in
Mhm.
mind, like that I want I want to show my
Mhm.
kids a way of living that like accesses
Mhm.
that creative, connected spirit.
Mhm.
Like I would want them. I don't care if they go on to like quote be artists,
Right.
right?
Right.
But
No,
it's like,
absolutely.
yeah, but feel that you have a connection to this. That's part of
Yeah.
your, inheritance as a human.
Yeah. Yeah, what you just described there is so much like fascinating to me in the mother artist dynamic, because when you're talking about thinking what would be the point, what would be the goal here if I told him no, this is my book, don't touch, you're like deeply engaged in the creative process and also absolutely engaged in not just mothering in the moment, but like your overarching like values as a mother and like what you want your child's life shape to be and how you want to engage with them in such like that's a really it's a small moment, but to me those small moments are like what create the relationship you have with your kid. They're what create your child's relationship with, like you said, their artistry, everything. And it's just a little bit mind-blowing if you think about it, that you're sitting there doing art and then without a thought you're completely being a very engaged, very like value driven mom right in the moment too. Which like you have to be able to make art in the middle of the house unless you want to be always annoyed with your kids. Like you have to find that place, but it's not a small thing. Like if you think about the amount of mental and emotional energy that it takes to do those two things at once, that's what mom artists are doing a lot of the time, right?
Yeah. I mean, exactly. And it is moment to moment. But I also think it's like that's how relationships are built. Like that's,
Yeah.
you know, w- that's how that like web of interconnection is built, is like
Yeah.
presence in moments. Um and so yeah, like when I'm like meeting a neighbor or You know, even seeing an owl, like, we're recording
Yeah.
this in winter, and it's, like, such good owl season, right? And it's I don't know, somehow it's the same, right? Like, we're as a human upon the earth, it all comes down to moments, like, there is no point, I think, again, as an artist or as a mother where it's like, "Okay, this is the time that it really counts."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just,
Yeah.
like, constantly, like, all those little moments, all the rehearsals or sketches or, you know, just, like, noticing and seeing and wondering, and as a parent, all the more so, right? It's not like,
Yep.
"Okay, today's the day that
Yeah.
they are going to model how to be a human on." It's like,
Yeah.
"No, we're just every day doing it."
Yep. Absolutely. No, you're totally right. Um, Jeez, I've never thought about that connection with art. The way you, like I said, you kind of live that constant awareness of connection and presence is, uh, it's such an important thing to do as an artist, and it's such an important thing to do as a community member. So again, like, you're just bringing me back to that place of like how those two are so deeply interwoven. So we talked about how sort of your kids collaborate with you, at least in one instance. And of course, you also mentioned your husband David, who is also an artist, musician primarily, but also a writer and probably a bunch of other things too I don't know about.
Yeah.
Do you and David ever collaborate? Besides, you did with the Cranky. Do you have other collaborations or any other experiences of that?
Yeah, like, in some ways, I'd be like, "No, the Cranky was, like, our biggest collaboration," but, what we do as first like, I think even though he is a musician and known for that, I think he would first identify as a writer,
Okay.
as I did, and that's where we collaborate the most, and, we we almost always read each other's work, like, we're each other's first editors, and that is, like, for creative work, professional work, academic work, like, there's a lot of, reading, and even earlier in the writing process, for both of us, like, we talk a lot, so
Mhm.
I think that that's, like, our main collaborative process is, like, we're always in conversation, and we will, like, try to make time for it, if not every day, every week to like, we get into, debates, conversation, and are often, like, floating out ideas, and
Okay.
so that idea might become part of something we're writing or creating, but yeah, so yeah, absolutely, I would say David is, like, my main collaborator. Yeah, I feel like it's David, and then there's, like, I feel incredibly blessed by, like, the other mothers who I'm close to and who I happen to, like, connect up with when my firstborn was, like, a a toddler. I met so many amazing people just, like, right during that, like, really important time when of, like,
Yeah.
matrescence, I've later found out it was called, right? Of becoming a
Oh,
mother.
okay.
And, yeah, um, yeah, that's Alyssa Warmland. I feel like I need to, like,
Okay. All right.
give her the credit for that term, bringing that term to me, but yeah, the process of becoming a mother and, like, that whole transformation, I was, like, received out the other end into this amazing group of, creative mothers who I feel,
Okay.
like, um so that's also like, a source of collaboration, whether it's, like, formal as with Katie Flindle and I, like, working on
Mhm.
the Frog and Toad project, or, super informal, just
Mhm.
talking about, what we're, like, working on or, like, trying to work on
Mhm.
as mothers who
Mhm.
are trying to be creative in the world, right? So
Yeah. Amazing. I also can look around me at a community of people I collaborate with, and many of the ones I collaborate with most closely are also mothers. It's true, and I wonder. I've never thought about it. I didn't meet them through parenting necessarily, but there's still a bond that is there of shared experience, and then art making on top of that. There's kind of, it's like if you have those two things in common, those are that's a good percentage of my life and my heart wrapped up in a
Absolutely.
commonality, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
That's like yeah, you're like, that's a big
It's big.
piece of being a human in
Yeah,
the world right
absolutely.
now. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Megan, I'm really grateful to count you as one of those people. And as a new collaborator for me now, it's been really fun to have this vision of this imagination. I have no idea yet what you're coming up with, but I'm just so excited for it with our song. And for other people who want to find you now that they've met you here, or maybe they already know all about you, but your writing, I know for sure they can find your writing in Watershed Magazine from time to time. The Cranky will be on YouTube, possibly by the time this episode comes out, actually. So it's with my
Right.
song called It All Depends on YouTube. And is there anywhere else you'd like people to find your work, or where your writing is published, they could go check you out, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I am navigating what like so many of us are about trying to figure out the ways to be like safe and boundaried and open and connecting
Hmm.
online. So I am on Instagram at Meghan Sheffield and I can be found that way.
Great. And for those of you who are interested in what I described of the way Megan turns her community experience into art, I think follow her on Instagram. It's really special to see that there, and it's, I think, probably the ongoing project is happening there most often. You can see it on an ongoing basis, which is really, really a lovely thing. So thanks for your time, Megan. This has been amazing.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank
And we'll
you. This
we'll
is
be
so
chatting
good.
again soon about the Cranky. But yeah, for now, I will
Yes,
let
we
you
will.
go back to your family, who's probably waiting for you.
Great. Thanks,
All right.
Shannon.
Thanks, Megan.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.